Hello, everyone, to the 86th episode of Kouryer Podcast. Today, I'm joined with Mr. Jeremy Nixon. He's a 2D animator and director from London, United Kingdom. And with that out of the way, let's jump into the first question. Give us a little introduction on how you got into visual arts and design.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me on the podcast. Excited to shoot my mouth off about a few things. So my start was, okay, so I've been in the game a while now. I've been kind of professionally animating for about 18 years, maybe. But I guess the way I got in was, I think like loads of artists have this a story which is like, I didn't know I could do art for a living. And so yeah, I'm not going to buck the trend. I was I loved cartoons growing up. I grew up in the 90s and I was watching sort of, Disney 90s cartoons and all the Disney, everything corporate conglomerate, fun, soft, round edged cartoons. And I loved it. And I drew a lot in my spare time, but, I didn't for a second think people do this stuff. So I dropped out of school when I was 16 and I went to Polytech doing a business computing course. So I did that for a year because I like computers and I use them a lot. And I finished the year and I was like, this is not fun though. This is going to kill me if I do this the rest of my life. So I worked in a supermarket for a year. And while I was there, I saw an ad in the newspaper that was for a 2D animation school. And I'm like, it's like one of those kind of like the puzzle fits in, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's a job. It's something I can study for. And so I left my small town and I spent 3 years studying 2D animation. Sorry, I forgot to mention I grew up in New Zealand. This is in New Zealand, so yeah, that's where I was, and that's where I studied animation. And it was in maybe my second year where I was like, wow, actually animation rules. When I started, I was like, I need to do something. I like drawing. Why not? But it was the second year where I was just like, holy shit, this is mind blowing. Like you can do anything with animation. Yeah. And then the story goes on for another 20 years or so.
Awesome. And I just have a couple of questions from the answer you just gave. The first one that came to my mind is: were your parents supportive when you wanted to drop out of school?
Mm. They, I think I'd say like they were definitely supportive. They weren't happy about me dropping out of school, and I did pretty well in school up until I was about 16. I changed schools and I kind of fell behind real quick because there were a lot of subjects that the other kids had already been ahead in. And so for my parents who were always like, like our son Jeremy, he's good at school and stuff, and they were always really proud of me. And suddenly they were seeing their son just crash and burn at school. And it's only in later years I've realized how hard it must have been for them. I think they were pretty good at like concealing this deep worry that their kid was gonna just, gonna lose everything and not be able to find a decent job and stuff. But I mean, I'm really grateful because they weren't like, "What are you doing? We're gonna like send you to your room until you get good at this." They were very much supportive of me trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And yeah, so they were supportive. They weren't like, don't do it. When I decided to get into animation, I think they had a little bit of hesitancy. They were like, okay, if you wanna, but definitely have since then gone like, oh, this is something he loves and it's something that is, paying off. So yeah.
All right, awesome to hear.
Mm.
And how was life in New Zealand growing up?
That's a good question. It's pretty quiet. It's pretty calm. It's pretty sunny. Um, I think I've realized I'm a city kid, and I think when I came to London, I kind of followed my younger brother here, and I was like, yes, I'm in like a massive metropolis, and I think that's something that I would miss if I moved back to New Zealand. Like New Zealand is super beautiful, really lovely, and a lot of my good friends are still there, but I love London, and I love being so close to Europe and all this awesome history as well. Yeah.
And is it true that New Zealand that there's actually these huge bugs like grasshoppers in New Zealand?
The Weta, yeah. We've all heard of Weta Studios, but a Weta is Yeah, it's like an insect that's like maybe this big. I remember my dad would like find one and he'd hold it in like our faces and be like, "Look, it doesn't want to hurt you," and it's this hideous beast, and we're just like, run away screaming.
Why?
They're gross. Why did he do it?
Yeah, I think he was trying to like release your fear of like I don't know bugs or
It
something.
never worked. It never
Yeah,
worked.
it never works. Just why? It's 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 funny. Like sometimes there's people who want to treat like a lot of people like naturally have like a phobia of sharks, for example, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a like a population of people that believe you should treat that phobia. Like why? Like it's natural to be afraid of sharks. Like why are you doing that? Like even snakes as well. Like I don't get it. Nature is scary, especially around
Yeah.
New
Oh,
Zealand,
yeah.
Australia.
100%. Yeah. My wife is from Australia, and like yeah, I can't believe she grew up around spiders that are like this big and stuff. Yuck. Ugh,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, let's move on quickly from the subject.
New Zealand mostly has birds, so it's pretty
Oh,
safe.
all right, cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you already mentioned some of like your basically your origin story and stuff, how it came into to the animation and stuff. But the next question
Hmm.
is, I mean, of course, I already mentioned, and you mentioned that you're a 2D animator and director.
Hmm.
But the question is, what is your main branch of design that you're focusing on right now? And tell us about your experience from the start of it until now.
Whew. Um, I guess so. Like, I guess the story of my career is in like three parts. The first part was when I finished studying and I worked freelance for a few places doing, animation. Then I moved to London in 2009 and I worked for a game studio called Splash Damage for about 9 years. They work on mostly kind of multiplayer first person shooter games, PC games. And I ended up, I was working kind of marketing and brand and not animation at all for the most part. So I kind of like over the years I was there, I learned tons, and I was a brand manager by the time I left, which is like it's like even just the name brand manager, I'm like, oh, it feels like an artist's nightmare. And in a way it was because I was learning a lot, and brand to me became quite interesting, but I was desperate to get back to art and creating art. And so about 4 years ago I started freelancing, and this is my kind of like phoenix moment and kind of like rising from the ashes, kind of almost starting again. Um, and so my branch of design, I guess it is. So it's 2D animation, but it's also uh, I've been working with clients more than with sort of agencies, and uh, so I've kind of been in this phase of my career. It has been working directly with clients, sometimes with kind of contractors on my side, but having a bit more control in terms of the vision. Working for a game studio that's like 200 people, like large for 8 years, you're a sort of a small cog in the machine to some extent. And so for me, it was like I really wanted to get back to having a bit more control and having putting my own stamp on the work that I was doing. So this probably doesn't answer the question at all, but I mean, I would say that right now I'm moving. So for the last 4 years, I've been doing direct to client, um, often by myself or always by myself up until about a year ago, where I started to take on subcontractors for larger jobs. So basically, the direction that I'm heading in is doing more directing work. So hiring people to do concept art and animation and stuff, and me acting more as a director and giving feedback and that sort of thing. So who knows if that answered your question? Do you think it answered your question?
Yeah, to an extent it did, but
Okay.
no, I mean,
Yeah.
but like, I mean, there's not much to say. Like we already mentioned, and you already explained a bit here. You're a 2D animator and director. Like, I mean, yeah,
Mm.
it was pretty
Mm.
good. It was pretty good. Yeah.
Mm. I guess I'm also like this year has been very focused on the kind of evolving landscape of social media. So I
Hmm.
joined TikTok this year. I know I'm too old for TikTok, but I did it anyway. No one tried to stop me, so I just did it. And yeah, I've been learning a lot about like vertical video, which is new to me. And I'm kind of a purist. I grew up. I love film. I love television and film, and it feels wrong to have a vertical format. Like I'm like, no, I'm creating art like this. The more letterbox, the better. But guess I've kind of realized in the last year that there's a lot of room for really fun stuff in that format, and it's been very interesting to see the way people are consuming like video and art and stuff online, and it's because it's changing a lot.
All right. And the next question is, how does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a project? Like by design process, basically, I mean, what, how is the structure of a pipeline of your work from 0 to 100 looks like? Could you explain to us?
Hmm. Yeah, sure. I think so when I take on a job with a client, the first thing I do is like a lot of research. So um, honestly, it's finding out more about the company or the brand or the client, and maybe even more importantly, trying to find out more about their audience. Because as much as I want to be like, hey, I'm an artist, my own style, and I want to put my spin on things, at the end of the day, when someone hires you to do a job, you need to understand who it's for. And sometimes who it's for is not necessarily the kind of the people you would normally create art for. So to me, that's the most important thing, is going like, okay, how is this audience different to, like, say, my own audience on social media or whatever? And so it's kind of like a deep dive into what drives the people that follow the brand that you're doing the job for. Um, Goodness, this could be a very long answer. But I guess there are a few things that I use in my kind of workflow. One is Trello, which is just a kind of like a task management software which you can use through Chrome, and it's free. And I find it really helpful because you can set up templates. And because animation is quite involved, and it's not like start a drawing and finish a drawing, done. There are lots and lots of steps. So Trello allows me to go like, oh, here's my template. I know I need to like collect reference. I know I've got rough animation, I've got cleanup, I've got color, I've got compositing. And yeah, so that helps me to set everything up and go through it in the same way every time, in a kind of a structured, organized way. I also track my time. No, I'm not going to get into time tracking because that gets really, really boring. But
No, no, no. Actually, if it's fine by you, of course. I mean, if
no,
it's
of course it's fine by me.
then please, I actually want to know. I'm actually
Mm,
curious.
okay, yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I started freelancing 4 years ago, and so it's just been a constant learning process for me. One of the hard things about animation, and especially when you are doing everything from scratch, you're hiring people to help you to do it, is that you need to know how long things take. Like when I work with a client, it's like they ask me how much something will cost, and I can't say, this is my day rate. I have to say, it's going to cost this much based on what you want. And so in the first 2 years, almost always, I would say, it's going to take this long. And then, it ends up taking this long. And so I get paid this much less. So one of the most important things for me is tracking my time always, because that really helps me to really narrow down how long things actually take. Um, so I have an app called Toggle. It's like a Chrome extension. Um, Toggl, and it's really great. It hooks into my Trello account, and basically all of my Trello tasks, I can click a little button that says start timing. So at the end of every project, I can see, oh, I spent 30% of time in like rough animation, 20% of time in color, blah 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 blah, and I can basically like pie graph. This is how long each part of the process takes. So yeah, that's been really, really helpful, is getting a greater understanding of how long things take. Um, yeah, yeah, that's kind of the production stuff I use. Um,
All right.
yeah,
And no, I was waiting because I thought you were going to add something. That's the
I
reason.
just need to figure out when I should stop, because I can also talk about the work itself as well.
No, if you want,
Um,
yeah, sure, go ahead.
yeah. Yeah, so I start with references. I'm collecting stuff on Pinterest, as I'm sure absolutely everyone does. I'm creating sort of mood boards of the stuff that I think will look cool. Then in animated projects, I'll start with a storyboard, um, or an animatic when that's moving. So essentially, and also character designs at around the same point. So then I'll send the client the moving storyboard, the animatic, and it'll be like a really crummy set of drawings, but that give a good impression of how it will look and what the timing will be. And at that point, I say to the client, look, if we want to do any changes right now, we have to make them in the animatic phase. We can't make tons of changes once I'm actually doing the animation, because that's going to take too long. So if they want any changes, I change it then, and then I get into animation, and that's the bulk of the work, is doing sort of rough animation, sketching that out, then doing cleanup, um, colors, and then compositing in After Effects and doing some crazy 3D things and stuff. Yeah,
All
that's
right.
kind of it.
And all right, the next part I actually want to talk about. I want to talk about some of your stuff, and
Mm.
like there's something interesting that I want to talk about that
Yeah.
I think a lot of people will find really interesting. All right, so first things first, I've looked through some of your stuff, and one thing that's kind of like took my eye is that you've been working on some of this kind of like animated album covers,
Mm.
and like that,
Yeah.
especially Daft Punk ones was looked really cool.
Oh, thanks.
Just uh, basically tell me the whole story behind like the idea of like doing the album covers first.
Okay. Yeah, this kind of hooks into what I was saying about joining TikTok this year. Because you know how there are trends on TikTok, and the internet is like constantly accelerating. So whereas before there'd be like a few things happen every year, and you're like, oh, I should get on there. There's an art challenge. Now it's like every day there's a crazy new thing happening. Um, so essentially, I joined TikTok, and I'm like, I'm way too old for TikTok. What am I doing here? But luckily, I have a friend who's like about 10 years younger than me, and she's on TikTok and she knows what she's doing. Shout out to Shayla. And she sent me a turn your art into an album cover kind of trend that was going around. And so a lot of people were like putting it to, like, I think it was like a Kanye song or something. And essentially they would get their art, and they would put, all they'd do is basically put like a little parental advisory sticker on the bottom right. And then they would kind of, you put the song on it, you put the parental advisory thing there, and you've got your kind of fake album cover. And so anyway, she sent me that, and she was like, "You should try this." And I'm like, "Why not? But why not make it animated?" Um, so I did. I kind of just grabbed some of the animations I'd done. I put it on a CD cover using After Effects. Sort of figured out how I would make that work, and yeah, posted it, and it did kind of crazy well. And so chasing the fumes of that high from getting attention. I've done that a few more times since, and it's fun. Like I think it's something that people haven't seen before, as far as I can tell. Like I'd never seen. I'm sure other people have done it, but I had never seen it before, and I think it took people by surprise. So I'm kind of seeing how far I can push this, and I'm already planning new things using a similar kind of idea. But kind of trying to push it even further. So it's cool. It's pretty fun.
All right, and actually, I want to ask you something. How like I heard that there's the organic reach and growth on TikTok is like really
Mm,
good, especially like
mm,
even now. Apparently,
mm,
no, but they people have been saying this for a year now, so it
yeah,
must be good. So how has it been for you?
good. Yeah, I think part of it is also that there are not tons of like professional animators on TikTok. There's lots of people doing rotoscoping of dances and stuff like that, which is really cool. But in terms of like, people who have been in the industry for a while and have lots of stuff to share, I haven't seen a lot of it. There's a few people and a few companies, but not a lot. So, I mean, my experience is my own, so I can't really speak for anyone else. But definitely after a couple of weeks of posting stuff, I did start to see the numbers go up a lot. Um, but it's also, you kind of realize over time what what kind of what TikToks work and what don't. TikTok is really interesting in that you can post something that you're really proud of, and even if your followers are really going up, it could get like just no likes, no views at all. And it's because they'll send your video to like 100 people. Like there's a small sample size that it shoots it to first. If of those 100 people, If like no one cares, if no one watches for more than a couple of seconds or likes it, the algorithm will just be like, and they won't even send it to your followers. Like no one will see it. But on the other hand, if you send something and everyone of the first 100 people are like, wow, this is cool, then it'll send that video to just so many more people than you could possibly imagine just on their For You pages. It'll just shoot it to a bunch of people, and the little like algorithm pixies will do their work in the background. And if it keeps doing well, it'll keep propagating that to more and more people. So yeah, I'd say if you're an animator and you're watching this and you aren't on TikTok, I would recommend getting on there because like I think you have like loads of opportunity to get a lot of followers, a lot of views on that platform. But reels are the same, by the way. I don't know if
Yeah,
you
Instagram
understand.
Reels.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And yeah, I mean, I never knew that actually, that the way TikTok algorithm works, that it first sends it to like
Mm,
randomly to 100 of your followers, and
mm,
if it
mm.
had good engagement with those first 100, it doesn't.
Yeah,
Oh, that's actually really smart.
it's really interesting. It's obviously it's just the company just figuring out what keeps people's attention spans.
Mm.
And of course, it's kind of, like I'm really interested in all this stuff, but of course, the whole system is scary as well in terms of how it's entirely built to keep your attention and to keep you away from a regular life. um, yeah, so I find that whole thing, it's like this horrible, beautiful thing where we've created something that can entertain and surprise us and can also just keep us locked into our phones without needing or wanting to do anything else.
Yeah, and you mentioned a term called rotoscoping, and for the people who are
Mm,
listening who don't know exactly what rotoscoping is, it's
mm,
basically like making an animation, but from referencing from a video or a movie, but trace every single frame, and just animate it that way.
yeah.
Like that's basically it. And like a lot of people who, for example, get a clip of, for example, a UFC highlights fight or even boxing, and just rotoscope at that, and you make like 2 million views or something.
Mm. I think this is the thing about TikTok and Reels and the way that social media is going is that I think it's hard for animators because animation is such a time-consuming process that these platforms encourage you to create content fast. And so I think a lot of people who are really interested in just getting followers and viewers will find the fastest way to do things. And it becomes a race to the bottom because at the end of the day, if you're in the business of art or if you want to see great art, if you want to create great art, it's hard because you're probably not going to get as many followers or views as if you just have some good ideas and can just like throw them out really fast. Yeah, it's a bit tough.
Yeah. And the next thing I actually want to talk to you about is
Mm.
like I think you posted recently some of your character design you made for Black Cloud
Mm.
Entertainment, if I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken. Um, there's like a guy with a huge gun, and there's like this
Hmm.
the Sasha one.
Yep.
Tell us about those. Like first, the project you're working on. I mean, if there's no NDA involved, of course,
Mhm.
and also the characters.
Sure. Yeah. So this is a project called The Medium. As you said, it's for a business called Black Cloud Entertainment, and I'm kind of like halfway through the process of this thing I'm working on. Um, it's basically a trailer for a show that the business wants to get off the ground, and this is by far like the biggest thing that I've ever worked on in terms of me taking on a project by. I was going to say by myself, but it's big as well because I have a bunch of people working with me on this one. So, for instance, those character designs that you saw, I didn't actually design those. Those are designed by my friend and collaborator Franz Chandelier. Probably pronouncing his last name wrong. Sorry, Franz. Yeah, and he's actually someone who was my first year tutor in animation school all those years back. He's gone freelance recently, and so I was like, dude, come do some character designs for me because his style is so good. Um, yeah, so I can't talk too much about this project other than it's gonna be awesome. Like I'm so hyped. I've got some really amazing animators on the project, and hopefully next year I'll be able to share shots from that, because I'm just really hyped about how cool it's looking. It's basically like a sci-fi universe, and this trailer is just like one little chunk of it. Yeah, I probably can't and shouldn't say any more than that.
All right. And well, the next thing before moving to the next question, there's just one last thing I need to I think bring up and discuss, which is
Mm,
brand management, which you already mentioned that you worked for like a
mm,
couple of years in a game
mhm.
studio as a brand manager. And also speaking of brands,
Yeah.
for anyone who's watching the podcast on the YouTube version of the on the YouTube channel, you might see that there's a certain style and fashion sense to our guest today. Like there's this, fancy like tie, and the brown color of the tie matches with the goggles and everything. And it's even in your profile picture, like you've obviously going for the like making a personality like for
Mm,
yourself, so to help brand your work and stuff,
mm.
which is doing good.
Yeah.
But tell us about the story of why the goggles, why this kind of attire. It's kind of seems like a strong steampunk vibes.
I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, I started wearing these, not this exact pair, but I started wearing goggles in my second year of animation school. So 2005. I've been wearing goggles for, yeah, what's that? No, wait, 17 years? Many
Yeah.
years. Maths is not my strong suit. Anyway, basically the thing was is that I was like, either steampunk was kind of big at that time, and there was like anime with people wearing goggles on their forehead, and I was just like, man, there are so many cool looking characters that wear goggles, but how come no one wears goggles on their forehead in real life? Like people wear earrings, people wear cool hats. Why don't people wear goggles? So I just decided I'd do it. But I also had dreadlocks at the time, so I had goggles and dreadlocks. Yeah. Anyway, I started wearing them then, and quickly became known as the goggle guy. And I guess I was just like, yeah, screw it. This is kind of my thing now. So I moved to London and I went for my interview wearing the goggles, and I don't know. I think they make an interesting first impression. Um, yeah.
That's actually low-key genius. Like
I
now that you said it, I just realized.
think standing out is a good thing when it comes, especially when it comes to kind of making connections and getting work and stuff like that. And I think it can be hard for artists in particular
Yeah.
because we don't want to stand out. And I'm an introvert. Like I feel uncomfortable at a party, but I think you kind of need to push through that. And if you can make someone remember you, if you go to a conference or something, and if people remember you, then that's great, because then they'll be like, who was that person, who like had the blue hair or whatever? Like, why don't we talk to them? And I think first impressions do last. And if you can stand out visually, like, why not? As long as you don't come off like an ass, then maybe I do come off like an ass. I don't know, but
No,
at
no,
least
no,
people,
no.
yeah, I guess. Yeah.
No, that's actually really
Um,
smart.
but yeah, I guess that,
Yeah. Sorry. Go on. Go on. Go on. No, no, it's fine. Go on. Sorry.
yeah. I mean, I guess it doesn't. I didn't start wearing them for that reason. I wasn't like I want people to remember me. I was just like, damn, goggles are cool. But I think over the years, as I've kind of like learned a bit more about branding and stuff, I have I have realized that it is important and useful. And so when I did go freelance for the first time, I was like, well, this is something that I can lean into for my own personal brand. Um, so I did, yeah. As you say, like my avatar on Instagram is me with goggles, and in my email signature, it's there as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. But as for branding, it's interesting because I left the company Splash Damage going like, I am done with branding. Like, this is not who I am. I'm an artist, damn it. But I think I quickly realized after that how important branding is, especially when it comes to, for me, I need to get work, I need to get clients. And so while I thought I had left the idea of branding, in my past job, like burn it as I leave, I was like, I realized over the years, like, no, this is super important to me, and I would say super important to any artist that wants to be noticed and wants to get their name out there. Yeah.
All right, and all right. The next question is kind of like a controversial one because every guest has a hard problem, answering it. Don't
Okay.
worry. It's nothing, like hard or
Nothing
anything.
problematic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. But this question is, who are your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most? Now, I think you see what I mean when I said that.
Yeah, because it's hard. Well, for a start, it's hard to choose, but also you blank. Um, okay, so I would say all time. I actually have what I would say is an all time favorite artist. Her name is Claire Wendling, and she is a French kind of character designer, comic book artist. She worked in the animation industry for a bit, and yeah, Claire Wendling. Her style is just my jam, 100%. It's like a kind of a stylized realism, and if I ever get bored of art, if I ever start to think like, I'm just a bit burnt out on looking like, what is art? What is it for? What's going on? Who am I? I can just open up one of her sketchbooks and just see like a single figure and go like, oh yeah, that's the stuff. Yeah, so I think I've realized that she is just 100% like her style is so good. Other than her, though, I mean, I've been inspired by people I work with, the people I studied with. Definitely, when I first studied animation, I was constantly being driven by my peers who are all, better than me at drawing. So that helps to be surrounded by people who are better than you because I was just, I want to be like you. Um, yeah, really inspired by filmmakers because I do love film, and I think as an animator, you have to kind of love film. And so yeah, I love goodness some names. I really like Robert Valley and the stuff he's been doing lately. Don't know if you've heard of him. He's done a couple of segments from Love, Death and Robots. He did Zima Blue and Ice. He has a very distinctive style, and lately he's been getting into doing sort of more storytelling, which is amazing. Um, who else? I like the Coen brothers. Wong Kar Wai is a Hong Kong director who does absolutely beautiful work. Uh, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, who did like Spider Verse and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. They are amazing. Uh, yeah, I don't know, a bunch of and just like Instagram, just so many amazing animators and companies on Instagram that is like. Have you heard the term despiring?
No.
Okay. It's like an amalgamation of the words inspiring and depressing. And
Oh, I think I know what you mean. That they're so good that they make you both
sad.
inspired and depressed
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
same
They're
time.
like they make you go like I want to be better, and they also make you go I could never be that good. So just browsing Instagram is like that. Like I'm constantly inspired by the people I see. Yeah.
Yeah, I can totally relate with that. Um, Actually, speaking of Love the Robots,
Mm,
Jesus, like I have it in my Netflix playlist, but
mm,
I, I haven't watched it, but it's on my watch list. But
yeah.
aside from that, but of course, I've heard a lot of great things from everyone for the Love the Robots. Everyone told me to watch it, as soon as you can, whatever. And I'm like,
Sure.
yeah, all right, whatever. I'll definitely watch it. Um, but aside from this, do you have any other recommendations for animations for people to dig in?
Um, I would say uh, if have you seen any of Satoshi Kon's work? He's an anime director. So some of his films. He died a few years ago, really sadly, like way too young. But he's done some films like Tokyo Godfathers, Millennium Actress, Paprika.
Oh, Paprika,
Um,
I've seen
mhm,
Paprika.
mhm, Perfect Blue, and a really amazing anime series called Paranoia Agent, um, which is really mind bending, really good. And his work is kind of like characterized by he's kind of like someone who loves live action and he doesn't fall into like a lot of anime tropes, which I really appreciate because like as you know, like a lot of anime is very derivative. There's loads of amazing anime, but for him, I find him interesting because his work is really influenced by live action, and he's actually influenced loads of live action directors like Darren Aronofsky, and a bunch of others. Anyway, his work is really good. I'd recommend seeking him out. I would also say I'm going to get his name wrong, but it's Masaki Yuasa. He's another anime director who's still working. He did. You may have heard of Devilman Crybaby. It's an
Yeah, I
anime.
heard of it, but
Hmm.
never watched it.
I haven't watched a lot of it, but a lot of his work is just absolutely mind-blowingly weird, which I love. He did a film called Mind Game, which came out in like I don't know 2000 and something 7 or something, and that's an anime film that is just kind of absolutely bonkers. Uh, he did a show recently called Keep Your Hands Off Isaacin, which is like about three schoolgirls who decide to make an anime, and that is like super inspiring as an animator. Uh, yeah, his work is amazing, and he has a very, very distinctive style. Masaki Yuasa. Yeah. See the film
Uh,
Mind Game. It's so good.
Mind Game. All right,
Yeah.
definitely. It's an anime, right?
It's an anime film.
All
Yeah.
right, awesome.
It's very strange.
And all right, the next question is: what technologies and softwares do you mostly use for your works?
Yeah, I kind of live in the Adobe suite for the most part. Um, Actually, in 2D animation, I'm usually using TV Paint because it's really great for a kind of a hand drawn aesthetic. Um, and then I'm usually importing my animations into After Effects and using Photoshop for backgrounds as well. So I spend a load of time in After Effects doing compositing, uh, and yeah, other Adobe software like Audition for sound sometimes. But yeah, I'd say After Effects, Photoshop, and TV Paint are kind of my go-to programs. And I've been using Blender a bit lately as well. I'm like a complete 3D noob, but I've started to slowly wrap my head around Blender. Seems
It's
good.
it's kind of interesting. There was this artist, I think called Manny O or something, and
Mm.
he made a tweet. Do you know him?
I know, yeah, Manny. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, yeah,
And he
yeah.
once made a tweet like a couple of months ago, and he said like, learning Blender for artists is like I want to start working out for like that kind of comparison. And it was
Like
actually,
working out.
yeah, no, like when people say, oh, I want to start working out, but they never do, and it's something they want to do.
Oh, I
And
see. Yeah, yeah,
learning
yeah.
Blender is like for artists, like when an artist say, I want to learn Blender, I should learn Blender.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like,
Everyone just says it. Yeah, yeah. I think the best way to learn is when you are forced. At least for me, like I don't learn until I'm forced to learn. So, for
uh,
instance, I'll take on a project, and I'm like, the only good way I can do this background without having to spend a million hours is by doing something in Blender. I had a job last year where I had to create like a moving background in a tunnel, and I was like, I could spend 2 weeks just 2D animating a tunnel. But at this point, I should probably learn Blender. So I just like got into Blender, smashed my head against that wall for like a week. And in the end, did do something faster, even if I was very, very slow at using Blender. It's painful, but you just keep your head in tutorials and stuff. Yeah.
yeah. I think one of the good starting points is Andrew Price's like the Donut series on YouTube. I don't know if you saw it. So it's like a 4-part video
Yeah.
series.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's really good. I've only watched like a few of his videos, but every time I need to do something in Blender, I search for it and he comes up. And he's got a great kind of style. He seems very friendly.
Yeah, I mean, but people try to, I think, put him on a cross for not agreeing because recently,
Hmm?
like in the past couple of months, when the whole NFT craze kind of like really skyrocketed.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
of course, it's kind of like dimmed down a bit. Like the
yeah,
hype
for
is
sure.
kind of gone.
It
And
has a bit, yeah.
and the thing is, he made everyone. It was at the time that every YouTuber and artist was making videos on about NFTs and everything. And there were like made
Mm,
two main like crowds. One were like cancel NFTs, they're bad for the environment.
yeah.
It's like blah 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 whatever that. And the other side, which is um, in comparison to the, for example, factory farming and other stuff, it's minuscule the amount of
Mm,
like damage it does. And there was like as from the since the dawn of time where population of people have been involved with each other over different stuff.
mm,
And yeah, Andrew Price made a video and said, and basically kind of in a rational objective way try to explain that NFTs might not be that And he agreed that there is some environmental concerns, but it's not
Yeah.
something to just cancel people over. And there's a lot of people
Yeah.
who cheered each other on for unfollowing and canceling and calling out
Yeah.
people, artists who are doing NFTs, like saying you're sellout, stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. It's disgusting, this stuff, honestly.
It's a really tricky area, isn't it? Because I mean, I definitely lean closer to the like right now NFTs are not a good idea for the ecological impact, but definitely the response to people and often artists who are criminally underpaid for the most part, just trying to make a buck. It's tough. It's really hard because like a load of the ideas behind NFTs and the idea of putting the power in the artist's hands and being able to take a cut of future sales and all that sort of thing is absolutely incredible. And I totally understand why artists are jumping on board, especially if it's like they're going to see a return on their art that they've never really seen before. So it's really hard. Like I definitely, first couple of months when things started to bubble up, I was very interested and I started to consider what an NFT of my own would look like, and then of course I started to find out about the how much power goes into like the mining, the minting and stuff like that. And yeah, I mean for me, I'm someone who tries and often fails, but tries to lower my carbon footprint. So it's not for me, but I definitely am not going to like crap all over artists who are like, no, this is a way to make a living. Yeah. But of course, we're already at the point where we've gone beyond artists who have wanted to make a living and moved into corporations who are muscling in on the concept, and
Yeah.
it's already become something that all the big businesses want to kind of extort to them to the most to the largest capacity they
Yeah,
can.
I know
Yeah,
what you mean. And the
yeah.
thing is, like, it's kind of like, honestly, like, I've been researching, about the community, the whole NFT space and everything, and
Mm,
I even had some ideas of my own. But the thing
mm,
is, like here's my conclusion to everyone who's been listening, because for a while I wouldn't shut up about NFTs in the podcast.
yeah, sure.
Um, what I've learned from all of this experience, the following is this:
Mm,
right now, and even from this start, like, not it's not the official start because it's been going on for a couple of years.
mm,
The NFT space has been mostly, even at first, even now, mostly is occupied by people who are deep, who are into crypto for years now. They've made a
yeah.
lot of money from crypto. They got lucky and got a lot of money from crypto, and they can
Mm,
spend it lavishly on NFTs and
yeah.
CryptoPunks and stuff like that. The CryptoPunk is
Yeah.
on sale for $91 million right now. One of them, the alien type,
Woo!
and he, and here's the thing. Here's why they're really expensive. By the way, for anyone who's listening, because the reason the first NFT projects are so expensive and valuable is because it's the first time in recorded human history that there's a possibility for digital art to be sold, and they're the first collections. That
Mm-hmm.
historical significance adds a lot of value to it, and a lot of people might
Mm-hmm.
not get it right now. For example, you're working a 9 to 5 and come home and see the news of a CryptoPunk sold for 9 million. Like, screw this stuff, they're scams, and
Mm.
I understand your frustration, and you're right, but maybe, like, I don't know, in a century or two, people will recognize the actual importance of this stuff. Like, I genuinely believe there's
Mm.
certain
Yeah.
value in them.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, absolutely. And I would never argue that. There are definitely lots of people who are like, what? It's just a token. But like, no, I totally get it. It's like, obviously it's like the whole scarcity thing. But the truth is we live in the digital now. And whether we
yeah,
like it or not, this is life. This is how kids are gonna grow up, like it's not going to be long before we're all like jacked into the equivalent of the Matrix or whatever anyway. So it's absolutely gonna there's going to be more of it. I'm sure it'll evolve, and obviously the hope is it'll become more environmentally friendly and stuff. But it's absolutely just going to evolve and continue and become the I imagine the dominant kind of you know
exactly.
yeah. But that's interesting that you say about how a lot of the people buying NFTs right now are, like people who have, you know, Bitcoin and stuff. It makes sense, and it's kind of like obviously that influences the art that's created as well. And you see a lot of artists sort of like their style very much diverges from what they usually do because they're like there's an audience, and
Yeah.
to get that audience, you have to kind of like start to mine the kind of more crypto bro kind of uh,
Oh God,
style.
yes.
And I mean, for me as well, like I'm happy to wait until there are, they're a little bit more accepted and there are more styles that people are looking for in art. Because I would never say that I don't, I never like, I'm not like a singular artist who's like, no, I will not change for the audience. Because, I do. And like, when I talk about those CD cases, I started to do more of those because I was like, hey, people like this stuff. So I'm not someone who is like, no, I am a auteur and this is my vision and I will never change it. But I think a lot of that kind of digital, digital lols kind of style of art
Yeah.
is not really my jam. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is that just to finish up the whole thing, and the thing
Mm,
I was gonna say that of course a lot of them are people from crypto space, so they had a lot of money, so the prices are kind of different.
yeah. Yeah.
And at first, here's the thing: at first of the crazy NFT boom, which happened like I think around the end of fall of 2020 and the early winter of 2021.
Mm,
At first, it was like 30-40% of as you said, those crypto bros, that it had its own culture and thing, but
yeah.
most of it, a lot of people that came in were actually good artists that they
Mm,
saw opportunity, and a lot of the
mm,
artists that are like successful now found their success there, found their
mm,
audience and following from there. But of course,
mm.
there were people who their work was actually like legit good, the quality was
Yeah,
good, the quality was there.
absolutely. Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
thing is that right now, unfortunately, if you go to any NFT marketplace,
Mm,
it doesn't look good. The art doesn't look good at all.
mm,
And here's the thing: I know a lot of people might say, "Rumptin, you don't know anything. Art is subjective." Yes, it's subjective. It's all subjective as well. Even
yeah.
the subjective art, like for example, like here's the thing: I understand, like an artist, like for example, just strokes the brush of a paint, like something on a huge canvas on
Mm,
a and sells it for $2 million to a
mm,
collector. Here's the thing:
mm.
the art is subjective because that piece, maybe, for example, here's an example I'm gonna say. Sorry if I'm just rambling words all
No,
the
that's
time.
good. Yeah.
I don't know if you watched the series Daredevil. Have you?
I haven't seen it. No.
Here's the thing. There's a scene. There's without spoiling anything. There's the bad guy is called Kingpin. He's a fat bald guy,
Hmm.
and the thing is like a scene. He's in an art gallery and he's just sitting and just staring at just a normal painting with just brush strokes with just with some little protrusions on it, like a texture of a
Mm,
ball, and he's been
mm,
staring at it. And he bought it for like 6 million or something, and the artist asked him, "Why did you choose this piece?" Because it reminded him of his own childhood.
mm,
The texture, the feel, like art is subjective. Like at this point, I
yeah.
understand,
Yeah.
but if you just take a quick look at Foundation.com or
Mm,
OpenSea or Rarible, all that,
mm,
there's like most of it is just people trying to appease to cultures and niche of the collectors and
mm,
everything to make a
yeah.
quick buck, and so many just,
Oof.
I'm just gonna say, trash art.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I wouldn't even
That's
say it's
legit.
art, like
Yeah.
trash
Yeah.
compilations of pixels and colors for the sake of like someone literally just wrote on a paper with a pencil,
Yeah.
low
Yeah.
effort NFT, that's it. And it's sold for 2 Ethereum, which is
Oh
roughly
my
around
goodness.
$4,000.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like most people in the space don't know the actual value of money. They got lucky, for example, 7 8 years. A lot of
Mm,
people, the main collectors, they got lucky with Ethereum, Bitcoin, at the first beginning phases of it.
mm.
And Jesus, the whole thing. But here's my final conclusion from all of this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is
Yeah.
just a report.
Yeah.
Don't there won't be a FOMO. There won't be a fear of missing out. Don't worry if you haven't got
Yeah.
into NFT space or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
The only thing that you need to focus on is your art, and that it not just art, the
Mm,
art that you love.
yeah. Yeah.
Because the thing that you love and you focus on will produce a unique result
Yeah.
than the rest of
Yeah.
your peers, because that's something you actually love and just feel passionate about. It might take for and here's the thing that people don't like, because the thing I'm saying takes years.
Yeah.
The journey is long, and a lot of
Yeah.
people don't like that. They like to just make something for a quick buck, in the NFT space.
Absolutely. And some
And
people can, so some people are finding that they can get away with that. And I think there's there's a slight, okay, so for me it's been very interesting, and I often think about that kind of awful awkward push and pull between art and commerce, right? And the truth is that even if you're a commercial artist, if you're making money off your art, then you are in this world. Like there is no escaping the fact that you need an audience, and and you need to make money to live. And so for me, like a lot of the clients that I work for, I don't know exactly what their ethics are and what they do and stuff. And I think that NFT example you gave is perfect, and it's almost like this weird microcosm of almost any art related industry that pops up, which is like it'll start because there are some passionate people who care about a thing, and they'll make it happen, and they'll do it off the sweat of their own backs, and they'll be very excited about it, and then it'll start to blow up because it's a thing that starts to gain attention and traction. And then that's when everyone else is like, wait a minute, there's money in this. And so you'll have tons of people pouring in and just doing whatever they can to make money off this new thing. And then the corporations come in, and I don't know. It's funny. This is just the world we live in. That one where art and commerce are completely tangled up, and there's almost no way to pull these things apart. And I think so. I think as an artist, it's just like it's an awkward space to live in this world, to try to create stuff that you think is beautiful and wonderful, um, while getting paid to do it, and trying to say something. For instance, trying to have a message while working for brands, work with big companies. It's an interesting and awkward and awful thing.
Yeah. And for example, following the success of CryptoPunks, there were so many
Mm,
clones and spin-offs, like just
mm,
absolutely,
mm, mm.
just like I want to see the creator of them, and I'm like, dude, what are you doing actually? Like, just why?
Yeah, yeah.
And like I mean, I don't want to judge or be a judgmental. Maybe they need money or whatever. I like we don't know,
Mm,
but
mm,
like it's obvious there's no passion or love in it. It's just for
mm,
the money, and
mm.
you love it because of the money, not because you
Yeah,
love it. That's the important thing.
yeah,
People subconsciously don't realize.
yeah, for
and
sure.
and the thing is, that last message about this whole section is, as I
Mm,
said, focus on your passion and what you love, and build
yeah.
up your quality objectively, because there's a thing
Mm-hmm.
for anyone who is skilled. There's in any space or macrocosm, there's always opportunities, whether it be NFTs, whether it be
Yep.
something new, whether it be in the just general traditional industry, working in industry. There's
Mm-hmm.
If your quality is good, there's work for you all the time and everywhere, so you don't have to worry, if your
Yeah,
quality is good.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you better work on something you love and reap the rewards for the rest of your life. Or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, just don't chase around your tail. Like I used to do that a lot, because I was one of the persons. Like I feel like I'm talking to my old self.
Yeah, I think yeah, if you started a career in say art and you found a quick way to make money, say you spent 2 3 years doing this and the market suddenly changes, say it's NFTs and for whatever reason NFTs just become irrelevant. You've lost you've lost this way, if that's what you built your entire career on and you don't have skills to fall back on, that's a problem. Yeah. But as an artist, anyway, if you're an entrepreneur and you really do only care about money and don't care about art, whatever, you can chase your dreams,
Yeah, do whatever you
chase
want.
the dollar.
Chase the hustle. There's so
Yeah.
much hustle porn in this social media. Like people are like,
Oh yeah.
Brian, wake up. This fucking cringe stuff. Oh my god, like
Mm,
it's so
you mean people who are,
obnoxious.
as in people who are like, you've got to keep working to. What do you mean exactly? What's an
What I
example?
mean by that is people who try to always, basically, I think in the last decade. By the way, I
Mm,
have nothing. Just uh, don't try to see my words out of context. I'm gonna explain. Like, I mean, there's a lot of like great entrepreneurs who kind of basically made entrepreneurship cool. And a lot
yeah.
of people just try to adapt that and put it in their bio and just say, work hard, great, look how much I made profit of this stock or just coin,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like this whole culture of like hustling and chasing money and chasing
Yeah.
dollars. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a businessman, I sold stocks on Robinhood, I sold, I don't know, rocket shit coins on whatever. Just
Yeah, it's funny because the truth is that I don't like. I can totally imagine that, and I'm sure I've seen a few people like that on social media. But it's funny how much social media becomes like a reflection of the stuff you care about, for good and worse. Like basically, I only really follow animators that I really love. So the truth is that like my feed and the stuff that I see every single day is like 100% different from the person who lives next door to me. So that's kind of a weird thing, isn't it? That like we used to live in a culture where we all saw the same things, where we all understood the same things, and now we're only seeing, yeah. So if you're someone who wants to be rich, like, yeah, you'll follow everyone who is rich, right? And then you'll become one of these like kind of power bros who like is all about, you know, uh, looking good and being kind of like suave and powerful and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely rambling.
No, no, it's fine. I'm doing the same. It's a really interesting topic, to be honest. Like, there's so much we
Mm,
can talk about it, but
yeah, yeah, definitely.
let's actually move on to the next question. If
Sure.
you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Um, what tips and advice do you have for a good portfolio and resume for an artist?
I guess I'll speak to animators or people who
Yes.
want to make it in animation. Um, yeah. Uh, it's funny because I think a lot of the advice that I hear and I would probably give as well, I feel like I don't quite adhere to. So it's a bit confusing. But I would say that, like, for instance, as I mentioned, I have been working with animators in the last year, and I have been kind of subcontracting people to help me on jobs. So I will say when I am looking for people to work with, I mean, the quality of their work is just that's the most important thing. Is like for me, if I'm looking for an animator, I want someone who's really good at animation. If I want someone who's a good background artist, I want someone who's a really good background artist. So in this case, I would say generally it is good to specialize in terms of like if you want to be an animator, really focus on that. If you want to be a character designer, really focus on that. Because for me, I'm at the point where I want to hire someone to just do backgrounds or just do animation. And having said that, I'm like a jack of all trades, master of none, where I really like doing a bit of everything, but I'm not the best at anything. Um, so I would say, yeah, specialize, find the thing that you really, really love to do and get great at it. I'm not saying don't focus on anything else, but make something your priority. So if you're an animator, really focus on your movement. Don't focus on making pretty characters, modeling or designing pretty characters. Um, what else? Yeah, don't be a dick. I guess that's like really important. Um, when I was working at Splash Damage, they made it abundantly clear in the last few years that I was there that like it was a priority for the studio to hire people who were friendly and affable over people who were really good at what they did but were jerks. Um, and I was frequently interviewing people as well at some near the end, and you can kind of get a sense of it. You don't want someone who has a real ego or thinks that they're the best. I remember interviewing one guy who described himself as a unicorn, which was like the moment someone calls himself a unicorn and says that they're absolutely everything you'd ever want and you're not going to need to go further, it's just like your brain switches off and you're just like, please, just shoot, get out of the building. Um, I think, yeah, having the knowledge that you can always be better is hyper important, both for your own personal growth, but also for the way you come across when talking to other people. And so I'd say when it comes to looking for work, it's so important to be friendly and to give up some of your time to help people out if you can. And yeah, so focus on one thing if you can. Be friendly. There's probably loads of other advice, but I'd say those are to me the most important things. Yeah.
All right.
Oh, and
Awesome.
have a short reel. If you have an animation reel, don't put like make sure there's nothing bad in it. It's much better to have like a 30-second reel that has your absolute best work rather than a minute long reel that ends with some stuff that's not as good. Yeah.
All right. Awesome. And the next question is, what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? What kind of project is it? I mean, of course, if there's something that
Mm-hmm.
and there's NDAs involved, we can skip right past this question. But if
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case, tell us what you're doing right now.
Yeah, I've got my fingers in a few pies right now. I already talked about the medium, that animated trailer. So that's a really big thing that's happening right now. I'm also working with a indie game publisher called Modern Wolf on a few projects. I've been doing sort of trailers for some of their games, and that's been really, really fun because it's very their games are quite different from each other, so it means I can jump in with a new style. I can't talk about the exact projects I'm doing for them right now, but that's fun. What else? I guess. Oh yeah, I don't know. Have you heard of the video game Disco Elysium?
Yeah, I actually heard about it.
Hmm. It's got like an adorable character named Kim Kitsuragi, and he's just a really really great character. He's like he's like the guy who's like your cop buddy who follows you around, and he always makes you feel bad about your decisions. And you essentially play like a alcoholic amnesiac, and your buddy Kim is just this like prim and proper, buttoned up officer who's always judging you, but secretly loves you, and he's such a great character. Anyway, I'm doing a little fan animation of him. I can talk about that because it's not for work; it's just for fun. So
Yeah,
I'm going to
sure.
animate a little bit of dialogue. Yeah, that's about all I can really talk about right now.
All right. And all right, the next question, we're getting off about the technical questions a bit. We're just going to some personal questions. But personal questions, don't worry, I don't mean any intrusive questions. What area beside the area
Ask me
you're
anything.
all right.
Say
Um,
again.
what area beside the area you're working on right now would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? Like, given, for example, the factors of time and money wasn't the
Mm,
case for you. Like,
mm,
and not just learn anything, like do anything. Like, it could be completely non-art related. What would that
yeah.
be?
So I make music as a hobby, electronic music, and it's just kind of taken a complete backseat in the past few years since I've been kind of like going freelance, and I don't have like a full time job, and I can just like laze about and do whatever I want in my spare time. I'm always trying to make sure I can get clients for upcoming gigs. So I haven't done music in a while, and I would love to learn more about production. I'm like an absolute amateur electronic musician, but I would love to learn more of like the technical stuff when it comes to production, because I feel like I can make stuff sound fun, but like in terms of make it sound really tight and really good, I'm not great at that. We talked about Blender already. Yeah, I wish I could spend some time in Blender and like learn 3D and figure out how it could improve my own workflow. Um, I wish I could. I wish there's so much, dude. There's like, just take my job away from me and let me have a million hours and never get older, and I will try everything, and I'll be very excited to do so.
That sounds like a dream, actually.
I
I gotta
know.
say.
As you get older, you realize how fast time goes,
Mm,
and it's terrifying.
yeah. And the next question is, well, with everything that's been said and done, to conclude all we discussed, please give us a roadmap for someone who is zero in visual arts and wants to get to the place you are when it comes to, a skill set. Like, for someone who is here at
Mm,
visual arts and wants to become a 2D animator at your level
yeah.
here, what major steps would you think they should take?
Yeah, I mean it's different for everyone, of course. But if you can, studying, doing some course is really helpful. Some people don't need it, and some people can just learn online, and it's amazing that you can do that now. But I would definitely recommend doing an online course if you can. I would say unless you like live very close to like a real, like a CalArts style, whatever, some animation school that is like really prestigious, or Gobelin or something, then definitely go online. Don't go to like a uni that also has like a kind of a throw off like media design course to learn animation. Yeah, I mean, as an example, my wife, she studied animation a few years ago, and when she wanted to get into it, she decided to do this like 2 month long course in animation, and she was like, "This is great! I'm gonna like learn animation," and then it was being taught by a tutor who had finished the course there and just gone on to be a tutor, and was totally burnt out on the industry because he never got a job in it, and uh, yeah, basically she did a day of this course and was like, "No, this isn't good," and then she ended up going to a 3D animation online animation course called Anim School, which is really really great. There are a few of these kinds of courses, but they're online, and the most important thing is that they are taught by people like currently in the industry who teach part time. And I think if you can learn from someone who is in the industry right now, that is like so much better than anything else. If you can do that, it's amazing. Um, but I would say be curious about the world and always try to, I don't know, this is like contrived what everyone says, but like if you can just have like a kind of a childlike wonder and always look at the world in a new way or try to find ways to do that, I think that's very important as an animator. Um, yeah, yeah.
All right, and actually, there's a section I added to the podcast in the past, like 10 episodes, which I wish I did earlier, which is the
Excellent.
final ones. Actually, this wasn't the final question. I named it final words. This section, which is here's let me explain it. It's not necessarily a question. Yeah, technically it
Uh-huh.
is. But all right, here's the thing. For anyone who's listening right now who reached this point of the episode for a podcast, whether on audio version or YouTube, and they're watching right now, and for anyone who might watch in the future, maybe in 2 days, 2 weeks, or 20 years, maybe, like, who knows?
Hmm.
Of course, if the apocalypse hasn't happened and the whole servers were burned alongside, then we're all right. I'm just getting too off track.
Yeah.
Sorry. So yeah, for anyone who
An
in future,
existential spiral there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For anyone who might listen in future, in a nutshell,
Hmm.
if you could leave a message for those people, it could just as a human, what would that be?
Oh my goodness, that's a big one. Um, I would say if you're watching this in the not too distant future, then the world hopefully hasn't burned to a crisp yet. And I would say uh, do what you can to try and live your life in a way that doesn't add to climate change. I mean, climate change is a thing that really scares me, and you know what you mentioned there about the world burning is very true, and we can already see this year how bad things are starting to get. And the thing that worries me is that especially in the West, we are like, yeah, we need to do something about climate change. But like, what it will mean is us having to make choices that make our lives not as convenient or easy as they have been up until this point. And as hard as that is, if there's anything you can do to even slightly reduce your your carbon footprint, uh, I'm just preaching here, which is awful, because I'm as guilty of as all this stuff as anyone else is. But it's just more and more important because push the corporations to do something, but ultimately what it's going to have to come from us. So yeah, fight the power. That's my vague answer. It's
All
my
right,
Captain Planet
awesome.
answer. Yeah.
And the thing is that actually one of the easiest way to actually kind of contribute to that, but I mean, here's the thing: it's kind of like such a hard and just hopeless thing when you look at it. But for example,
Mm,
going just vegetarian, I'm not
hmm.
vegetarian, by the way. Like,
Hmm.
I would say I'm like 95% plant based,
Oh yeah.
because actually it helps me. Like, occasionally, just when I go outside with friends or whatever, I don't want to bring up
Mm,
that I don't like to eat meat or whatever. I just eat whatever they
mm,
eat, kind of like
right.
that.
Yeah. 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 Okay.
But
But from
mostly,
home,
like
you.
at home, I eat as vegan and vegetarian. Like, I
Yeah.
sometimes occasionally add a bit of cheese to my food, because I love cheese.
Hmm.
I just I don't care if I'm making a carbon footprint. All right, cheese is good.
No. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
like honestly, like when I was saying that, I really do mean like even if everyone did a tiny bit, like
yeah,
you're already by making that choice, you're already helping like reducing your own carbon footprint by a huge amount. And I think if there are definitely vegans that are absolutely kind of like manic, like absolutely if you do anything outside of this boundaries, you're dead to me kind of thing, which
yeah,
I totally understand, especially when it comes to like animal cruelty and stuff. But the most important thing in terms of like saving our Earth is just doing something, and whether that's going flexitarian or whatever. Like
yeah.
for me, I went veggie about 4 years ago, more for climate change reasons than for
Hmm.
animal cruelty stuff. But over the years, I've gone vegan because I've been like, yeah, this is actually a lot of the animal stuff is really
Yeah,
horrible if you spend
awesome.
time looking into it. But yeah, also flying is awful. If we can reduce flying just a bit, that's great. If you can fly less, let's do it. Yeah.
Yeah, or maybe just try to convert the whole system in a way that it doesn't, add to the pollution.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Obviously, like science is amazing, and I
yeah,
think right now, I think even all the big businesses are like, wait a minute, we're screwed if we don't do something about this. So it's exciting seeing advances, but yeah, any small thing you can do to help is awesome.
Yeah, that's actually a beautiful message to end this episode
Hmm.
with. And well, we've reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for coming by, Mr. Nixon. And where can people contact you if they had a question or anything? Is your Instagram okay?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I field messages and stuff on Instagram. So if you want to see me there, I'm on TikTok as well. So at Nixon Animation. Um, yeah, for sure. If you have a question, just shout out. And thank you for having me, man. This
All
is,
right, my pleasure.
yeah,
It was
I hope
it
I
was a
didn't
fun
shoot my
episode.
mouth off. Great. Good
All
to
right,
know.
so thank you so much for coming by, and thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode. If you have any comments or critiques or anything about the future podcast, or maybe possible future guests or anything, first of all, if you've reached this point of the episode, you're a trooper. Thank you.
I
And
talked a lot.
yeah, and yeah, that's about it. Take care, everyone. Have a good day,
Yeah.
and see you next episode. Bye.
Bye.